Welcome to the first workshop of the Ambition Emotion program this spring semester 2020. I'm so excited to have you all here, so excited to get started, so excited for you to begin the endeavor of connecting with a mentor and learning about what you want to do professionally and then getting your foot in the door with professional opportunities. This workshop and this program in general is going to help you get to where you want to be as a young professional into your career. And essentially for these workshops, I'm expecting you to watch this either live at 8 p.m., right when it goes live, or within the next 24 hours, and then post your comments to the questions that I have for you during the workshop. I will state those questions during the workshop when I'm doing our interviews with our interviewees, our guests for the evening. But more importantly, I want to know that you're engaged, that you're participating with this, because we've got a lot of great content for you. Now, when you get introduced to your mentor on Wednesday, you should reach out immediately. You should start the conversation immediately. You should not delay. I don't care what's going on in your world. I don't care if you're waiting for a career fair to happen. I don't care if you're waiting for some job interview to happen or you're waiting to hear back from some company. Get started. These mentors are here to help you. The more you delay getting opportunities with your mentor. So get started. Now, you can have more calls with your mentor. Actually, it's highly encouraged. But for successful completion of this program, for the way that we define it, have 3 conversations, at least 3 conversations. And those are just the general guidelines for when we believe that you should have those conversations. We will send a post-program assessment, which will allow us to capture your feedback on the program, on the experience itself. And that's essentially it. That's the program for the semester. I'm really excited to begin working with you. I'm really excited to get started. So this workshop is going to be roughly an hour long. So please post your questions in the comments area and we will work on answering them as soon as you post them. Try to give us at least 48 hours and you'll be notified, especially if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, you'll be notified anytime that we respond to your comments in the YouTube channel. So anytime that you post a question, anytime you make a comment, we'll know, we'll see it. But especially questions, we will do our best to answer those as they come up. And by the way, you can ask questions both to myself or to our guests for the evening. You are more than welcome to ask both, and we will try to get our guests to answer those questions. And at minimum, if we can't get our guest to answer him or herself, we will ask our guests those questions and get their answer via email on our own and then respond to that in the comments section. So during this workshop, we're going to cover how to achieve success in this program, how to expand your network and begin having conversations with people that you want to surround yourself with, and how you can begin working towards a goal with your mentor. This specific workshop's all about how do I get my foot in the door with opportunities. This could be an opportunity for a job or an internship. It could be an opportunity to get mentored by somebody, to be an apprentice. It could be an opportunity just to learn from somebody else, to start setting up informational interviews and just building your network. Either way, this is about getting your foot in the door, because networking is not a transaction. It's not about, hey, I'm reaching out to you so then you can get me this. Like, don't get me wrong. Your end goal could be to ultimately land an internship, and that absolutely can happen, but that is not how it goes about. That's not how you go about doing it. You have to build a relationship. You have to build trust with somebody. You have to build a rapport with somebody. And you know what? It might come about. They might say, hey, my company is actually looking to hire somebody, or I know this person that you should connect with, and they make an introduction, and that leads to that next opportunity. You never know how this is going to work out, but the key is that you're not expecting it from the relationship. You're coming in grateful for whatever opportunity that can come about from this relationship with your mentor, and you make the most out of it. But I just want to say that our goal is about how do we get your foot in the door, how can we help you effectively make those relationships happen and get the ball rolling for you. So to get credit for attendance during this workshop, I'll be asking you 3 questions throughout the workshop for you to answer, and post your answers to these questions in the comments sections within 24 hours of this video going live. So if you're watching the Sunday night episode of this workshop, I'll expect you to have your comments made, your answers to the questions that we post by 8 p.m. on Monday. If you're watching the Monday night version, I'll expect your answers to be posted by 8 p.m. on Tuesday. And if you're watching the Tuesday version of this workshop, I'm expecting your answers to be posted by Wednesday at 8 p.m. After that, you will not get credit. Now, I'm not looking for a comment like, hey, my name is John Doe, I'm just checking in. That won't get you credit. I'm going to ask you specific questions during the workshop that I'm going to point out and say, hey, post your answer to this question below in the comment section. That's how I know that you will be watching, paying attention, and are engaged in the workshop. So I want to set proper expectations. This program will not guarantee you an internship. It will not guarantee you a job, getting promoted faster than your peers. Having that mindset will not lead to proper results. This is not a program that hands things on a silver platter. These are for students. This program is for students that want to take their career path and their career into the next level, to their college experience to the next level, because that's absolutely what this program can do for you. If you think like, hey, I'm going to sit back, do the bare bones minimum, not really like apply myself, you're going to get the outcome that you put into it. But if you really apply yourself, you absolutely can get the outcomes that you want. I mean, I like to think about it as the law of attraction. If you come in expecting negativity, you will get negativity. If you're open to the positive, you will achieve positive outcomes. You will attract positivity to what you want to achieve. So I really want to encourage you to come in with an open mind and a positive outlook for what you can achieve and the willingness to work hard towards getting there. Students who have gone through this program have landed jobs at places like Google and other Silicon Valley companies, Wall Street investment banks, prestigious PR and marketing firms, and major engineering firms. Absolutely, yes, that has happened many times for many students. But did those outcomes get handed to them on a silver platter? Absolutely not. It's all about what you put into this program and the outcomes that you can achieve. They absolutely are there. They are absolutely possible. You have no idea how this can come about and help you out in terms of your mentor. Treat this program as fuel to help you get to where you want to be. If you're already burning and going strong, this program can really help you accelerate. Imagine just like getting dumped a bunch of gasoline on your big fire that you're already building. If you're burning barely at an ember, let this program be a sliding point, a starting point for you to launch off. But if you think and you come in with the mentality that, hey, I'm kind of doing a couple things, but I'm kind of following the status quo of like, I just go to the annual career fairs and I apply on the online website and that's pretty much it. If you're coming in with that mentality and that you're not going to try to or be willing to open up and apply and do other things to help you get your foot in the door, this program you may struggle with, because we're going to teach you a lot of things and a lot of ways that you can go about getting your foot in the door and getting opportunities for yourself that are not the normal way. That's why this program is for the students that are really interested in taking their life, their career to the next level, because these are the tips that you are not taught in school, and the experts that we bring in, the guests that we bring in to these workshops have content, insight, and wisdom that they've utilized and explained within their books, within articles, within other pieces of content they've created that they've built an expertise on. And so the point all I'm making is that this program, if you're interested in taking your life, your career, your college experience to the next level, you are in the right place. So I'm really excited to get started. Now, a couple of keynotes about mentorship. Now, when it comes to your mentor and who you were matched with, one thing that we leverage extensively is this research called work orientation, which is how you view your work. So some people view their work as a job, some people view their work as a career, some people view their work as a calling. Imagine a triangle and imagine it being a spectrum that can change throughout your life. So after you take your assessment and after you get matched with your mentor and you log into your dashboard, you can actually see your work orientation and your paired mentor's work orientation, which is really cool. Because what we've learned is when work orientation is aligned for a mentoring relationship, the likelihood that that relationship lasts for the full 6 months is considered both productive and quality by both participants increases by 400%. It's crazy how powerful work orientation is when it comes to mentor matching. If we were just to match you based on your career interest or their status within their company or their area of expertise, we know that those are only transactional metrics, and the likelihood that that relationship will last for the full 6 months and be considered both productive and quality is low, because then there's an expectation that someone's going to give you something or that you're going to give them something, and that's ultimately not how successful mentorship works. Successful mentorship works when both people can, on a human level, invest in each other, and that's how we make the matches happen. The other key thing about mentorship is vulnerability. The willingness to open up about who you are and what you want to accomplish in your story. I know that when you are more vulnerable, you are much more likely to build trust. You cannot build trust unless you've got vulnerability first. And it's up to you or your mentor to be the first person to take that step. So I want to challenge you to be the first person to take that step, to be vulnerable first. And to give you an idea of what vulnerability looks like, I will share with you my story. Now, I'm passionate about mentorship. I'm passionate about mentorship because I needed mentors in my life. From age 15 to age 19, I was a drug dealer. And at the end of my freshman year at Indiana University, I got arrested in an undercover operation by the Indiana University Police Department. And I got 5 felony distribution charges. I was expelled from school, and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And I mean, that hit me like a brick wall. I mean, up to that point in time in life, I thought success was you go to school, you get good grades, you get a job, and then somewhere along those lines, you find yourself, like as if it were puberty, it would just come to me. But that's not how life works. And I had to learn that the hard way. Because no one who I had known, no one who I had ever known that I ever thought was successful ever was a drug dealer. And so I had to accept either being a total failure or redefine my definition of success. And so I chose the latter. So I ended up enrolling in a program in St. George, Utah, to help me turn my life around. And that's where I really got exposed to the power of mentorship, both on a personal level and a professional level. On a personal level, really having personal mentors, people that are there for you, are so powerful. I don't want to ever discredit that, because I feel like sometimes when we're here and we're thinking about our professional outcomes, we don't realize how valuable mentors can be on our personal level, and really what they can do for us. Because if they help you open your mind to what you can accomplish in your career, or what you can accomplish as a person, in who you can emulate your life after, they can really show you something that you didn't actually even believe in yourself that you could accomplish. And I think that's so powerful, and that's really what they did for me. But on a professional level, they helped me really come to the grips with the fact that when you search my name when I was 19 years old, the first thing you saw was IUPD does drug sweeps for 8. And I'm one of the 8. I mean, there could not have been a bigger red X across my name when applying for any role. I mean, could you imagine that? Literally, any role I would apply for, I would have showed up with a big red flag. That is bad. So about a month after living in Utah, I flew back to Chicago. That's where my family's from, for the weekend, to let them know my life's getting on track. On that flight, I'm sitting next to a guy. We start talking. He starts sharing with me about his life. I start sharing with him about my life. We hit it off. I take a keen interest in him. I'm actively listening. I'm sharing. I'm really trying to put myself into his shoes, and I'm really, most importantly, actively listening. I'm taking down notes. I'm following up on the things that he has to say. I'm really digging into his world, because he loves to talk about himself, and I'm really playing into that. Well, it turns out he's the director of ground equipment for SkyWest Airlines. And by the time that plane lands, he offers me an internship on the spot doing financial analysis for SkyWest Airlines. Boom. Like right on the spot. What an amazing experience. I mean, he took me under his wing. He didn't care about my background. He didn't care about what I had gone through or where I was going, or the fact that I may even go to prison sometime in the next year. He took me under his wing and gave me a shot. And that was huge. And that's really where the whole idea for Ambition in Motion came from, was like the fact that opportunities could come out of the blue, that they didn't come from just applying on a website and people putting your resume in a background check system, and that, maybe you get spit out with this opportunity. I learned that opportunities could come from just putting myself out there, being vulnerable, and taking a keen interest in somebody else and actively listening to them. And so I think that's such an important story to share with you, because it shows, my vulnerability, but 2, it shows that opportunities can come from a wide array of places, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from, it matters where you're going. And if you believe that you can achieve what you want to achieve, you absolutely can achieve it, but you have to put in the work to go and get there, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable with people. Don't hold all your failures, your mistakes close to the chest because you think people will judge you. Put them out into the world, because ultimately people will give you opportunities, and they will believe in you if you let them. So that's something that's extremely important and extremely helpful for this workshop that I really wanted to share with you. Now, for this mentor program, there are 3 keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. Now, I said those in reverse order of importance. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit about why each one of these are so important in terms of being successful in this program. In terms of your story, in terms of your state is your physical being, your physiology. Like, how are you physically right now? Are you like in a peak state? Are you ready to go? Are you jumped up, pumped up, ready to jam? Are you coming into this mentor meeting like, man, I'm about to take on the world and I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I'm amped up. Or are you hunched over? Are you in a bad body language, bad posture, in a bad mood? Something bad happened during the day. You're tired, exhausted, stressed out, whatever. If you're coming in with a negative state, I can promise you're going to have a bad relationship. Your first impression is everything. Your first impression is everything. If you come in a negative attitude because you've had a bad day, I can promise you the relationship is not going to get off to where you want it to be. But if you come in with high energy, you come in like, hey, I'm pumped, I'm excited to learn from you, I'm excited to learn your story, I'm excited to ask you questions, I'm excited to share knowledge with you and have you ask me questions, I'm excited for this relationship to begin. If you come in with that mentality, you will have a great and positive first impression. Now, there's a couple ways that you can go about doing this. One way, and my favorite way to go about getting yourself into a peak state physiologically, is to get up, shake it loose, and yell at the top of your lungs. I know it sounds crazy to do something like this, but I want you to do it right now while you're watching this video. I don't care if you're in your dorm room. I don't care if you're in your house. I don't care where you're at. I want you to stand up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to shimmy. I want you to let it go. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah! Just let it loose. Let it out. Let it go. Because here's the thing, when you do this, you're releasing endorphins in your brain that make you feel excited, that make you feel energized, that make you feel good, that make you feel confident, that make you feel like I am here and ready to take on the world. And when you do this, you get yourself into a state ready to be in a good mood, to leave a good impression. So I don't care what's going on with your world. If you get yourself into a state physiologically conducive to being successful, get your body language on point, you are going to be successful. Promises on that. The next key is your story. So what is the story that you tell yourself? If you tell yourself a story like, oh man, I'm an introvert, so I couldn't possibly be good at networking, or I couldn't possibly be good at socializing or being around other people. Or if you tell yourself, I'm an extrovert, I'm crazy around people, I can't even handle it right now, I'm nuts. I can't even contain myself when I'm around people. I'm just like a blabbermouth. I have word vomit. I just let things fly like crazy. If you tell yourself these stories for why you will or won't be successful, that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So back to what I was talking about when I said the law of attraction. If you believe that you can be good at something, you will be good at something. I promise you that. But the key is you have to believe it. And the second thing is you have to practice it, because networking is a skill, like shooting a basketball or knitting a quilt. The more you practice, the better you get. So if you think, oh man, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert, which makes me bad at networking, you're not going to practice networking, which is going to reinforce you being bad at networking. But if you work at it, if you practice, if you use this mentor program to meet with your mentor, someone who's got like of no consequence to you, like if you, God forbid, mess up this relationship with your mentor, what is the worst that happens? This was a total stranger that you've never met before this moment. Now all of a sudden you're building this relationship. Why not give it a shot? Because here's the thing. If it ends up working out great, it gives you the confidence to start reaching out to more people and building a better rapport with more people and building your network. And then all of a sudden you can become better at networking. You can become better at building relationships with other people. And you can be better at learning opportunities when they arise and getting your foot in the door. So the point I'm making here is, what is the story you tell yourself? What is the thing that you've got in your mind for why you will or will not be successful? And the key here is that if you do have something positive in your mind, I promise you, you are going to be much more likely to manifest that outcome for yourself. And the last key is the strategy. So what are the strategies that you are going to leverage to help you getting your foot in the door for an opportunity? Now, here's something that I like to do. I like to implement new routines every single month, because what it does is it helps me get into powerful habits. Now, some of them stick, some of them don't stick. Some of them take, a while to stick. Some of them take practice, and that's okay. But the key is that you have to start. And so one thing that I would love for you to start doing in terms of a strategy to help you build a strong routine that will help you start getting your foot in the door is if you don't have a LinkedIn profile account, get a LinkedIn profile account. LinkedIn is a powerful tool. It's so powerful. Well, then once you've gotten a LinkedIn profile account, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field, not just 10 new friends or whatever. If you're just starting your LinkedIn account, friend request everybody. Get as many as you can. In fact, you should really try to get above 500 plus LinkedIn connections, because once you're there, you are much more in the LinkedIn algorithm likely to get recommended by other people in terms of connecting with them. But more importantly, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field of interest. So if you want to get into banking, connect with 10 bankers. If you want to get into marketing, connect with 10 marketers. If you want to get into engineering, connect with 10 engineers. Connect with 10 new people every single week. And it's a really easy thing to do. Send them a personalized message. Say, hey, Jane Doe, I'm a student studying XYZ category. I'm really interested in your work, and I'm interested in potentially pursuing a career in this path. I would love to connect and maybe learn a little bit more about your work, your name. It's the simplest message. And in fact, if you go on the tips and templates tab on the AIM dashboard, you can actually see a copy and pastable link that you can literally copy and paste to help you send this message out to other professionals on LinkedIn. But if you can get into the habit of sending 10 new people a connection request every single week, I promise you, you're going to start meeting with some of these people, and this could open up doors that maybe weren't even there or you didn't even realize were possible. I strongly encourage that. 70% of all job offers go to somebody who knows somebody at that company, not from just applying blindly on a college career website. I promise you that. 7% of jobs go to someone who knows someone at that company. So if you can build relationships with somebody at that company, your resume will go to the top because you were a referral, not a random stranger who applied. Build your network. So one thing that I love to do, and by the way, we're about to get started into our guest speaker, but one thing that I love to do before, to really reinforce what we're talking about, one thing that we've learned is teaching something to somebody else. So think about something that you've learned within these first few minutes of this workshop so far, or something that you will learn through our guest speaker in this workshop. I want you to think about that, and I want you to teach it to somebody else. Something that you learned. And the reason why this is so powerful is because, you know, learning something in a workshop is amazing. I mean, sure, I'm on here, I'm on this video, and that's great. That's all. That's amazing. That's fine and dandy. But if you go back to bed, or if you're like, oh, that was cool, I kind of took a note, whatever, like that might stick, but the likelihood that it actually sticks increases exponentially when you teach it to somebody else. So find a friend, find a stranger, find somebody, and teach them something that you learned this evening, and I promise you it will reinforce substantially more in your brain. You are much more likely to adopt the habits that you are learning. You're much more likely to apply the skills that you are gaining. So that is the key thing that I really want to stress with you from this workshop. So I'm really excited to jump into our guest speaker because we've got a great one for you this evening. I'm excited to learn. I'm excited for you to learn from our guest. Hey everybody, welcome to our workshop this evening. We have an awesome guest speaker here tonight. Laura Leedon is our guest. We're here to talk about how to get our foot in the door for professional opportunities. As college students, we're in the middle of coronavirus. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. We're trying to determine, like, where should we go? What if my internship gets pulled? What if my job offer gets pulled? What if I can't even break into this industry anymore? What if this industry won't even exist anymore after the coronavirus? These are all real, legitimate questions you should be thinking about. You should also be thinking about what industries may become into existence after the coronavirus. All very good thoughts. How can you position yourself into being in the right spot at the right time, and how you can get your foot in the door and be chatting with the right people to get your foot in the door. Laura is an expert on that. Laura is the founder of Anchored Elements Coaching and Training. Laura's coaching philosophy is anchored in clarity, effectiveness, sales, growth, and compassion. Laura, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I love your energy. Love it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like if you can be highly energetic, and by the way, when you're getting your foot in the door, if you come in highly energetic, people are going to reciprocate.
Right.
They're mirrors of you. They want to reciprocate, bounce off that positive vibes, those positive energies you're sending their way. If you can be highly energetic, you might as well, right?
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same. I've been told the same. So
very cool. So Laura, could you tell me how you acquired your first professional job? How did that happen? What went down? How did that all go?
Wow, this is way back. But it's kind of cool. So I actually was a college volleyball player. I was in college. So I didn't really have a whole lot of jobs when I was in high school or in college because I was all into volleyball. I mean, if it wasn't all year round, I was playing. And so I remember when I graduated from college, I was going to put a resume together, and I uniquely didn't have jobs to put on there, right? And I had a academic advisor. I'll never forget this. She was amazing. And we sat down and we spoke a little bit about what my strengths were in terms of my behaviors and in terms of maybe transferable skills, maybe things I had done in coaching even, right? Because I did coach during the summers for volleyball, but it just wasn't your typical, working at a bookstore or, whatever it may be. I didn't have those jobs to put on a resume. So we wrote down a lot of like coaching, teaching, training, the behaviors I had too, the passion I had, the energy I had, the discipline I had. And we kind of tied those things to what I was able to get accomplished as a result of my experience that I had playing volleyball as a student and my experience in the behaviors that I actually put forth to get things moving forward. So my first job was actually working at a junior college, and it met all the criteria, even though I was never a coach or a teacher. Does that make sense? Like, I was never that, but because of all the skills and the energy and I guess just kind of intrinsic strengths that were brought forward, I was able to be hired at a junior college working as a coach. So, yeah.
I love that. I love that. That makes me think of a question I'd love to ask the students really quick. Post in the comment section, what are the skills and abilities that you have, but you've been struggling to convey that you've got them on paper? Maybe you didn't have an internship or a volunteer experience that like purely emphasize these skills and abilities that you have, but you know that you've had them. Maybe it's from a class exercise or from a sports team or from some other project that you've worked on. Post them in the comments below. I love to learn about them. So Laura, let's talk about that a little bit more. So you didn't really have any internships. You didn't really have any jobs because you were all into volleyball. And what were some of your skills? What were some of your traits that you identified about yourself that really you realized could help set you apart from the pack?
Yeah, so being part of a team, I took that for granted. I always loved it, but that's a skill, that's a competency that's learned. Working in a group and being able to really listen and to influence people on your way of thinking, or to work through conflict, right? Working through a conflict and communication, and mentoring and supporting others that may be coming in on the team that are new when I was a senior and a junior. So there was a lot of that. I knew how to work with people. I had really good communication skills. I naturally led because in sports, similar like in corporate, there's a hierarchy. You're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. You're upper class, you're lower class. You've had the experience, you haven't. So I was able to share that strength of being able to step into a position where I could lead. I could work well with all different types of people. Winning and losing, huge lesson. I almost skipped over that one. Huge lesson. I had, and I say had to. Now I say I got to, because I see it as, I'm very grateful for that experience. But during that time, I had to learn to find the lessons in a loss. The W's were great. It was fun. It was happy. I had to learn how to get through the adversity of that loss. And that was a big lesson for me, because I did not like to lose. And through my experience of 4 years in college athletics, I really got to learn the lessons that came out of it. So I got to flip that almost and say, okay, what did I learn from this? What could I do different? What could I do better? It allowed me to be flexible. It allowed me to be really, really flexible and adaptable, and be able to learn the lesson and consider and continue to take risks moving forward, versus losing and then shutting down, or losing and then, getting all, in a ball of sad and upset about it, but really being able to stay composed, find the lessons in it, move forward, work through adversity, and really communicate. There was a lot that came from being on a team. I didn't see that though until I sat down with this advisor who said, talk to me about what you learned on being with a team. I had to learn too. I traveled and we had tutors on the road. We had to study, and we had to miss, your typical traditional tests and what have you, and do those on the road. And it wasn't always easy traveling and doing that. And you had to have a certain GPA to be able to stay in. So I had to learn what it was like to really work hard, work efficiently, versus horsepower, right? Versus the grind. I had to learn how to work efficiently. Something very valued in the corporate world now, or anything at this point, right? Yeah, I can go on and on.
That adversity breeds growth. I think there's a lot of value in that adversity, and I think a lot of students have faced some adversity probably over the summer. I mean, if they had an internship lined up, maybe they had that pulled, maybe they did it, but it was virtual, which means it wasn't the full internship experience. Maybe they had a part-time job set up, but then they got that pulled because the economy got crushed. What can students glean from this summer How can students take what might on paper look like an L from this summer and turn it into a W?
That's a great question. I mean, and I really have thought a lot about that myself. I think everybody's in that place right now. What they call it, the great pause. Is that what we're calling this, the great pause? And that really resonates for me. There's a lot to say for pausing in our world where we go 100 miles an hour, really taking advantage of this time. Gosh, I think the ability to reflect. I think, you know, if this hadn't happened, we would miss a whole lot of learnings because we would not stop to reflect. And there's a lot of value in any position that you get into on being able to pause, see things objectively, reflect on who you've become during this time. How have you handled this time? Have you gotten frustrated and pissy? Or do you see the environment and say to yourself, no, there's something to learn here. I'm going to stay positive in this. How did you use your time? Right? That's big. Some people just hung out and played video games, you know, or watched Netflix. Others have taken the opportunity to learn something new, to connect with somebody they hadn't really connected with in the past. And I think the biggest thing is, for me, think about all the technology and the ways of communicating and meeting and interviewing, that we would never have had this perspective had this whole mess happen, right? So there's a lot technologically that we can glean from this time.
So speaking of that technology, what are some technologies that you've used to help you get your foot in the door for meeting people or connecting with people or just getting to know them better?
Yeah. So I'll use a different story this time. So I actually had my first life, I was a collegiate volleyball coach. Okay, so I did that for 20 years. And then I switched over to a Fortune 500 company in the pharmaceutical industry. So I had no sales experience. So I literally had to convince these interviewees that I sold because I brought college athletes on campus. That's like, I had to sell that, right? Their degree, what they were looking for, all of that stuff. And so what I basically did, again, I love LinkedIn. I got on LinkedIn. Every morning I would get on LinkedIn and I would connect with somebody in the industry that I was interested in. And I would just reach out, I'd click on them, and then I'd write a little comment. My name is Laura. I'm stepping into this industry. I want to learn more about it, what your experience was. And I'd say, would you have an opportunity to speak? And I'd send it. Every morning I would do one. And some of them are my mentors now. People are more than willing to reach back out and talk to you about their experience. I got my foot in the door through that, right? So sometimes you just have to be proactive. And I would say 99% of them got back to me and were more than welcome to support me in it.
LinkedIn's so powerful. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's a great, I'm a big believer of atomic habits and just doing something every day. One of the things that I think all students should do is to send out 10 LinkedIn connection requests a day to people that are in their area of interest or expertise. Maybe they don't work for the company that they're interested in working for. Maybe they do work for the company that they're interested in working for, but not doing the exact same role that they like to do, but just to be connected. Because if you can connect with 10 people every single day, by the end of a week, you've sent out 70 connections. If you get 10 of them to accept, that's 10 new people potentially in your network. If one of them turns around and says, yeah, I'll have a conversation with you. We'll set up a 15, 20-minute Zoom call. Be happy to do that. You've now built a relationship with somebody that you would never, ever met before. And that could be huge. It could be game-changing for what happens next. You have no idea how that relationship can be leveraged and can change your life.
Yeah. And I'm on the other end of that now. So I get people reaching out to me. I'm interested in what you're doing with coaching and training. And I can't tell you how great it makes me feel to get on a call for 10 minutes with somebody and get to know them. And I love the energy and I'm proud of what I've done. So I like to share that, and then, 5, 10 years down the line, who's to say we don't meet up again? So there's a lot of value in it.
So true. And just because you're inexperienced does not mean that they don't want to talk to you. Just like you said, they're grateful. I mean, shoot, I reached out to you and you're an incredible speaker. And like you, as opposed to like you brushing me off and being like, no, 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 I'm not going to speak with you. You were like, of course I'm interested. And that was so cool, and I'm so grateful. And by the way, it happens with really amazing people all the time. I feel grateful. Like, for example, earlier this week, I interviewed like the ex-FBI chief hostage negotiator, Gary Nesner. Like, if you saw the TV show Waco on Netflix, he is the actual guy that was the FBI hostage negotiator. Yeah. And he was the most gracious, nicest guy on the planet. Like, I would have, I just said, I was almost like naive enough that I said, you know what, why not reach out to this guy? Who cares? Like, where am I at? Like, what's the worst that I have to be if I reach out? He says no, or he doesn't say anything at all, or he says yes, and it's super cool. And so I just think as a student, overcome all that mental BS going on in your mind, that's fear, that's holding you back from getting you what you want, because ultimately the opportunity to have that conversation, you have no idea where it could go. And even if you have a job offer or an internship offer, that does not mean you stop networking. It's not a sprint, it is a marathon. You are constantly meeting new people so that you can like augment your own career path and success.
Yeah. And it will never stop for me as long as I'm on Earth. So I'm welcome. Anybody want to call and talk to me? I'd love to talk to you. I'm good with that. Let's talk.
Yeah. So are there right and wrong ways? So we kind of talked about this a little bit. Are there right and wrong ways to go about getting your foot in the door? Like, I guess, is there potential to be annoying or be doing this in a way that doesn't resonate with the other person, just so that we can be conscious of that?
Yeah, I think, yes, of course, there's always a professional way to go about it. I think there's a threshold, and everyone's different to annoying or not annoying, right? I think if somebody is just responds back to you that they don't have the time and thank you for reaching out, that you should respect that, of course. Like, be done with it. There's a million people out there you can go. But I think too, a lot of us are busy. I know myself, I miss things sometimes. So to reach out and I don't get back, a gentle reminder, hey, look, I reached out to you earlier. I don't want to bother you, but I was interested. That's fine. We're human. We're in the middle of a lot of stuff. Of course, always very professional in how you present yourself. What is your motive? You're reaching out. What's your reason for reaching out? Not just, I know sometimes I just I'd like to connect with you. Okay. But I love it when people say, I'd like to connect to you because you have a background that I'm interested in, and I'd love to talk to you about that, right? So go through their profile, find, if there's something that interests you, reach out. If there's not, move on. There's a million people out there to touch. So do your homework a little bit.
Do your homework is such a great piece of advice. And your homework is not about you, it is about them. It is not about, well, I always wanted to be a project manager for Google, and I noticed that you're a project manager. Could you have a call with me? That's all about you. If you can say, hey, I noticed that you're doing some really interesting work with project management, and that you are, maybe doing some research or some work in this specific area of Google. I've been fascinated to learn more about that. I'm a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior in college. I think that eventually one day I might want to do something like that. Would you be open to having a conversation with me so you could share with me a little bit and I could learn a little bit more? That's it's a whole lot more palatable, because for them they're like, oh yeah, sure. I mean, it's an ego boost. It makes me feel good when someone's done their research and like actually cares about learning more about me. Personally, take the time to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, homework. I would say homework and always professionalism, right? And just respect the boundaries. If someone gets back to you and it just doesn't have the time or is not interested, that's okay. Don't take it personal. Move on. There's a lot.
On this tangential topic, introductions, is it okay to ask for them? See, all the students in this program are in a mentoring relationship.
Yep.
And ideally they're connected with their mentor on LinkedIn, and they may notice that their mentor is connected with XYZ person, Jane Doe, John Doe at XYZ company or doing XYZ type of work. Is it okay to ask for that introduction?
I would say yes. I think a lot of it depends on what your intention is behind it, right? So I think it's all about intention. It's all about what your intention is behind it. If it's to learn more about what they're doing, and potentially get grow that network a little bit, absolutely. The more perspective you have, the better. And I think introductions are a great way to go about. I've met so many people through introductions, honestly. So yes.
And eventually, it's okay to say eventually you might want to pursue a career at this company or down this path, and that you're just on a fact-finding mission. You're someone who is here to look for information and identify what the right path is for you. I mean, as a student, you got 4 or 5 years to figure this out, and especially when internships are being pulled, you're having less and less experiences to fully like vet out what you really want to do. Like, make the most of this time. Have these informational interviews. Have these conversations. It's okay. People genuinely want to help. I guess, would you say that people genuinely are helpful if you reach out and ask for help?
Yeah, you read my mind. I was going to say, inherently, people really want to help, you know, and every once in a while, someone may be just too busy. But there's never anybody I really that's like, I don't care about you. I don't want to know anything about you. Get away from me, shoo. You know, it's they really inherently want to make a difference because someone did that for me. So I really inherently want to give back.
And for most professionals, somebody did that for them. Almost nobody's path was perfectly linear. There's not this like perfectly, oh, I just, I got a degree in accounting, and then I got this career at this big 4 accounting firm, and then I worked up the ladder, and then I got to VP and partner or whatever. Yeah. Like, that's not how it works. And then, I got married and had kids. Like, life doesn't work like that. It is not aligned. It is circular. And if it is aligned, it's very boring. Right. So I will tell you, as humans, we are self-sabotagers. We will not let this be a perfect line because we get bored so freaking easily. Right. So don't build this up in your mind that you're going to have this perfect life with this perfect situation. It's like all this 5-10-year plan is going to go exactly as you want. Doesn't mean you don't create a 5-10-year plan, but it doesn't mean that if it changes that it's the end of the world. Right. So I think that there's a lot of value in reaching out and learning from people and building that. So another question I wanted to ask was, we're in these mentoring relationships. We're students here. We're trying to figure out what we want to do. What if my career interests change? Is it all right to tell my mentor that my career interests change? I know that as a student, I might think to myself, well, will they still want to mentor me if all of a sudden I don't want to become a doctor anymore, or if all of a sudden I don't want to become a marketing professional anymore? Like, will they totally disown me? What is your experience with that?
So the first thing that comes to mind is vulnerability. Be real. I can't even tell you all the different things I wanted to be, and I still don't know what I want to be sometimes. Be real. I mean, that's what a mentor is all about. It's somebody giving you their time and their experience and their attention. And if you're not authentic with them, then you're really kind of like sabotaging the mentoring relationship, to be honest. So yeah, and it's very, very common nowadays. It's not like it used to be back in the generations of our grandparents or great-grandparents, right? Where they had one job for like 40 years and then they retired. It is not the case. Right now, I think on average, you may be able to tell me, Garrett, 10, 12 different opportunities in a lifetime, something like that. So
I think 10 to 12 different industries.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say lean on being vulnerable with your mentor. And if you feel like you're in an industry or you're headed towards an industry, you're like, I'm not sure about that. I'm thinking about this. Now's the time to really bring that up. You may follow a breadcrumb with an idea and it take you exactly where you thrive. But you will never know that if you hold back because you're afraid of looking irresponsible or, scatterbrained or not caring. That's not the case. You got to go there with them.
I totally agree with that. That's so fascinating. I think to myself, on a similar topic of just maybe making changes with your career path or your career interest, but on this topic of just trying to figure it all out. Something I hear often from students is like, whew, got the internship offer. Don't have to worry about the stress of network anymore. Woo, that's off my back. Don't have to do it. And that's the opposite of the mentality that you should have when it comes to networking and relationship building, because it's never over. If you think it is, you are putting yourself into a horrible trap, because once you get into that internship and then maybe you don't get the job offer after the internship is done, or maybe you get the job offer but you're like, that was horrible. You're going to have to think to yourself, oh crap, who's in my network? Oh, I've done none. I procrastinated this whole time. I've woo, wipe that sweat off of not having a network, but then realize I've got zero like situations, I've got zero irons in the fire ready to rock. How can we, I know we kind of talked about this on LinkedIn, but are there other ways that we can be more intentional about always being open to opportunities?
Absolutely. So I teach a sales class that we talk about lead generation, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Okay. We call it our champion network, and then we call it an elite network. And our champion network is anybody that's going to be connected to our family. Okay. So you want to keep a notebook with you. And in that notebook, in your champion network, anybody that's connected to family and friends that you meet, you're going to put it down in that notebook. You're just going to keep adding. It's never going to end. You just keep adding. It's going to be with you at all times. Then you have your elite network, which is kind of like maybe you met somebody when you were out at the grocery store. Maybe you met somebody when you went to the gym, or what have you, right? Your uncle introduced you to somebody. That's another list. And you write these people's names down. And what you're going to try to do is just keep compiling names. You may not even need it. You may never need it. It's like insurance, right? You buy insurance, we never use it. We spend all that money, but we never use it. But if something happens, then we're set. So it's like insurance, buying an insurance policy when you collect all these names. And then you're going to just connect the dots. Oh, I met Joe at the grocery store. I didn't know that his brother is in the meat department. And I'm using those, probably don't want to be in the meat department. Maybe you do, who knows? But just keep connecting those and keeping those with you. And I call it an insurance notebook. And it's a networking notebook that I have. I've actually got it right here. This is my notebook. And I literally just keep writing people down. I may talk to, some of them I may never talk to. A lot of them, I'm like, whoa, the universe is working in a really weird way right now. But it just keeps me connected.
That's so funny. I do the exact same thing. I don't write it on a notebook. I keep a Word doc. So I do a weekly goal list every week where I just write down all of my weekly goals and that sort of stuff. But on that list, I have a massive list of people's names who have mentored me, have been in my life, whether they're family, friends, contacts, leads. I just keep adding to this list of people. And about every 3 to 6 months, I'll send them an email with an update of what's going on in my world. And I don't necessarily ask for an ask per se. I'm just updating them. Sometimes I'll ask for an ask, and maybe they don't have the answer to that ask. Maybe they don't have anything, and that's okay. But so often what's crazy is sometimes people will come out of the woodwork. I remember when I pivoted Ambition in Motion, my company, and by the way, you might think as a student, oh, well, I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't run a company. How does this relate to me? It's just like you said, it's sales. You are essentially selling yourself on why you should get a job or an internship at some other place. You're building your network to help you get there. If you don't think you're in sales, you're crazy. You are absolutely in sales to get yourself into a graduate program. Even if you're staying in higher ed, you still are selling yourself. But I remember when I pivoted Ambition in Motion, it was actually right around a year ago this time. And I had sent a message, this massive list of my network. And before I used to make really long emails and I did not have a very high response rate. I created a really short, sweet email where I just gave one sentence update of what's going on in my world. And I said, hey, if I were to identify some people that I noticed you're connected with on LinkedIn, would you be willing to introduce me to those people? I can't tell you how many of them responded with yes. So many of them responded with yes. And those who said no were like, it's okay. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't really do that sort of thing. But for all the yeses I got from people I hadn't talked to in years, it was so worth it. I had nothing to lose. Like, for the no's, it's okay. And for the no responses, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Yeah. But for the yeses that came out of the woodwork, it was insane. And I had no idea. And a lot of them had led to business and just great conversations. And so you'll never know who you meet. And they will never know about what your needs are unless you keep updating them.
And asking. And asking. I have a 24-year-old nephew who struggles to ask. And I talk a lot to him about, when you're in contribution, how do you feel? It's like, I feel great. I'm like, people want to support you. Ask.
So true. So how do we manage that stress? Kind of talking about your nephew, how do we manage the stress of asking? Because I know I would imagine a lot of students feel the stress of putting themselves out there to a random stranger they never met before, or asking a loose acquaintance for a favor or for some insight or for some time to put on the calendar. How can we go about overcoming the nerves?
Yeah, yeah. That's a tough one because it's kind of deep seated. You know what I mean? Like with my nephew, I asked him, he first thing he said to me is, I don't want to ask because I feel like a burden. That was this response. And I had to really dig in with him. Like, why do you feel like a burden? When does that happen in the past? Like, had you asked somebody for something before and they told you were a burden? And he's like, no. So all of a sudden that's going to happen, but it's never happened before. He's like, okay, Aunt Laura, I got your point. He's like looking at me, rolling his eyes. But I think a lot of the fear anybody has in asking for something is false. It's not real. You know what I mean? It's just vulnerable. To put yourself out there and to ask for a favor or support is to be vulnerable. And it really stems from that. What's going to happen? So I ask him all the time, what's the worst thing that can happen if you reach out and ask for support and they say no? And he says, oh, my feelings will be hurt. And then I ask him, well, then what's going to happen? He says, well, then I'm going to move on to the next thing. And then I'm like, then what's going to happen? And I'm trying to get to the point where I'm like, Ty, are you going to die? He's like, no. I'm like, go there. People want to be in contribution. It feels good. And the worst thing that can happen is your feelings are hurt maybe a little bit. You're okay. You move on. But
I love that.
It's rare. It's rare. Most people want to support.
It's so true. And it makes me think of an exercise. One thing I learned at a Tony Robbins event was putting your fear out there. Once you put your fear out there into the ether, it's so much easier to justify it as ridiculous. So what I want to ask the students right now, in the comments section, what is your greatest fear for why not to reach out to another professional to put yourself out there? Put that in the comment section. We'd love to learn about your fear. Do it. Seriously. We're looking for the first student to jump in. It's going to be a jumping off point because ultimately once you put it out there and you look at everybody else's fears, you're going to be like, you know what? This is ridiculous. This shouldn't be holding me back. I am going to do something.
Yeah. And I don't know, you may have heard the acronym of fear, what fear means. False expectations that appear real.
I've never heard that, but that's awesome. That's so true.
Yeah.
So once I've got the conversation set up, is it appropriate for me to share my personal mission, my goal with my mentor or with another professional that I've just met, just to let them know what my ultimate eye on the prize is?
Always. Always. It's all about communication and clarity, right? So if your intention is clear and you're able to communicate that and articulate it in a very clear way, then a lot of times the how and everything else follows. It's when you're unclear, your intention is not clear, and that's where a mentor can really be of support. So absolutely communicate. But if you ever noticed, if your intention is clear as can be, most of the time you never have to worry about how it's going to show up because it just shows up. But when your intention is not clear and fuzzy, that's when we feel like frustrated or like we're swimming upstream. That's when the mentor can step in. So absolutely say it out loud, share it, change it, articulate it, like as much as possible to get clarity, because then you'll start seeing doors open and people start responding. You know, when people aren't responding or opportunities aren't being available to you, it's always go back and think, is my intention clear? Do I know exactly what I want to do and why?
That goes right back to that example I gave. As I mentioned before, I used to send out these emails to my whole network, and I would ask them about, I'd share with them what I'm doing, and then typically my ask would be, do you know anybody in this area? If so, would you be willing to introduce me? That's not a very clear ask. That's a generic, like, mamby-pamby, like, let me take 3 seconds to think about that. Nope, see ya. Like, it rarely got the outcomes I wanted. But when I said, hey, would you be all right if I went onto your LinkedIn and identified specific people that I noticed that you are connected with? Would you be willing to introduce me? That's where I started to get so many more responses because I was very clear. This is what I want. I want to meet with John Doe, Jane Doe, and Shelby Doe. Can you make an introduction? I noticed that you're connected with them on LinkedIn. Now, they might not actually know all the people they're connected with, but when I became clear about it, it was so much easier. And they were happier with me. I remember, I know meeting with students where I eventually figured out the student wanted an internship with my company, but they would beat around the bush. They were like, well, I'd love to get in this space and I'd love to do this type of work. And I'm like, can I introduce you to anybody? And they'd be like, no. And it's like, Be
What do you
open about what you want. Yeah, if you're open about what you want, you'll get to where you want to be, and it'll be so much easier for me or any other person to help you because, like, we know where you want to go.
Yeah. And it's very intentional. I think there's a magic in intention too. Even to go as far as, hey, you know, I looked at your profile. I noticed some of the people that I would be interested in being introduced to. This is my vision. You know, when a person comes to me and says, this is my vision, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm enrolled. Yes, let me hook you up with somebody. You know, so you have to enroll someone in your vision so that it opens up possibilities for people and they take distinct action on it. That's what it's about.
Love that. So, students, last question I wanted to ask you, post in the comments section. What are you going to commit to tonight? Tonight, not tomorrow, not another day later this week, but tonight. What are you going to commit to start getting your foot in the door for opportunities? And are you going to commit to that on a daily basis? Can you do that? Post in the comment section. What are you going to do tonight? And what are you going to commit to on a daily basis to continue getting your foot in the door for professional opportunities? I want to learn about this. Post in the comment section. Laura, this was great. This is a really great workshop. How can our students, how can our audience learn more about you?
So my email, anchored, it's aecoaching@lauraleighton.com. I'd love anybody to reach out if they have any questions. Phone number 337-739-7415. And I would love to support in any way I can to open up opportunities and perspective and just enjoy this process. It shouldn't be stressful. It's such an amazing time. If I could go back and put myself in your guys' shoes, oh, I would love to go. I would love that. So enjoy it.
So true. And LinkedIn. I mean, all of our students are getting acclimated to LinkedIn right now. They're setting up their own profiles.
Find me on LinkedIn.
Yes, connect. Yeah, connect with me. Connect with Laura. Connect with as many people as you can. We will all accept your invite because we want to help you connect and grow your own network and help you get to where you want to be. Laura, this was great. Students, thank you all for being here this evening. This was fantastic. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Laura, thank you for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.